Welcome back, everyone. It's your host, Danny Haifeng. As you can see, I'm joined by geopolitical analyst and independent journalist Pepe Escobar. Pepe, good to see you again.
Good to see you, Danny. Greetings, midnight in Buddhist Southeast Asia. Greetings to you and to our audience.
Yeah, very much appreciate you taking the time out in this early morning for you. Everyone hit the like button. That helps boost the show. Pepe, let's get started, okay, with this debacle. Okay, we have a debacle now. Everyone, even the Western mainstream, everyone's saying the U.S. has suffered a major, at the very minimum, a strategic defeat. The very minimum, that's what we're talking about here. And we have a number of developments I just want to outline so people get a sense of what's going on. So Donald Trump is still very much obsessed with the Strait of Hormuz. He's saying that Iran is doing a very poor job in allowing oil to go through it. And that's not the agreement that they had. Well, here is what Drop Site News had to say about what Iran is actually doing. It's asserting major control and that there are 2,000 at least ships still stranded, and that Iran has told basically every single tanker other than the ones it is giving permission to through its toll system that they have to stay put. Now, this also comes, Pepe, I don't know if you saw the news. I found this very big. There's reports Saudi Arabia is accusing Iran hours after the ceasefire of hitting their major oil pipeline, the East-West pipeline that's supposed to be an alternative to the Strait of Hormuz. Not only this, but there's other production facilities that they claim were hit at this time, hours after the ceasefire, amounting to 1.3 million barrels per day slashed from Saudi's oil production. Iran is saying they didn't do that. But we do know that Iran did hit Saudi Arabia in the days earlier before the ceasefire was struck. And we also have news that Iran is holding out on talking to the United States at all until a ceasefire in Lebanon is reached and until frozen funds are released by the United States and Qatar. So, Pepe, help us outline what is going on here. It still feels like the U.S. is trying to force Iran to capitulate before talks even happen, and Iran has essentially said no.
Exactly. First of all, because it was the Trump administration who was begging for a ceasefire. And not only these past few days, they start begging for a ceasefire after 3 or 4 days of Operation Epic Fuck Up. Well, before our conversation, only a few minutes ago, I was trying to establish where is the Iranian delegation. Nobody knows for sure. The Pakistanis basically are saying that an Iranian military plane arrived at a military airport in Rawalpindi. Rawalpindi and Islamabad are sister cities. If you go, just to give you an idea, if you go by taxi from one to another, it's something like 20, 25 minutes. So they are actually there. Theoretically, they are at the Serena. We can call the Serena Hotel in Islamabad and ask them, look, are they there or not? Okay, nobody has done that so far. And then when you look, the whole spectrum of Iranian official and semi-official media, no, they have not left Iran. And theoretically, they are at Imam Khomeini Airport for hours. Now it's Now it's around 9 o'clock and 8:30 at night in waiting. And waiting for these 2 points that were stressed by Ghalibaf in some of his recent posts. First of them is Lebanon is exactly. That's the one. Perfect. The ceasefire in Lebanon and the release of Iran's blocked assets. These Iran's blocked assets, this is very, very important because it's not a lot of money, but it is substantial. $7 billion held in Qatar, but this was collected by South Korea, and it's related to U.S. sanctions. So now we have South Korean emissaries with the banking people in Qatar scrambling in the middle of the night to unblock these $7 billion until tomorrow morning. I wonder if they'll be able to do that, especially because same thing, Saturday morning is a bank holiday or something. So this is where we are. We don't know if they are in Pakistan. We are not so sure if they are at the airport in Tehran. And these two items, they won't be unblocked in the next few hours. So for this negotiation, and of course the Pakistanis, they did a Hollywood spectacle at the Jinnah Center. It's a really nice, enormous in Islamabad, decoration, beautiful chairs, you name it, a space for the media and all that, but nobody knows if this thing is going to happen, actually. So this is where we are at the moment, a major cliffhanger. Apparently, Vance is on the way. Vance should arrive in the next few hours, right? And the whole setup is already there. Like there is it's larger than life. The usual when there is a presidential American presidential visit anywhere in the world. So Danny, this is all part of the information war, because we have information war on both sides, and both sides are trying to pose as okay, we are in the driver's seat. We all know who is in the driver's seat by now, in terms of inflicting a strategic defeat on the empire. We all know what's going on. But, and of course, when you pay attention to what Vance said before he left the US, right, which was, the tone was not as baboon of Barbaria style, but it was threatening still. And this is something that I had reconfirmed yesterday. And correct me if I'm wrong, Danny, and all of you in the audience. Right at the beginning, when Vance became vice president, he may have mentioned that we should bomb Iran. I don't know if this is true or not. So this requires a little bit of, I didn't have time to do this before. And obviously he changed his mind along the way. And apparently, but of course, this is also not confirmed, he was against Operation Epic Fuck Up until the last minute. But this is if we trust the New York Times. And of course, we don't trust the New York Times. So it's all in the balance. What is clear is that he is playing, there's a big power play related to his presidential ambitions. He obviously wants to get the credit as a peacemaker. Of course, his chances are, I would say, from 0 to 10, probably 0.5. But this is what he's seeing, of course. This is everything to do with his own career path. So all these variables play, right? The Pakistani variable is immensely complicated but fascinating. For instance, I linked in my Telegram a brilliant article by one of my best friends in Islamabad, Junaid Ahmad. Junaid is a professor of Islamic studies, but he's a very, very good geopolitical analyst. And basically he says that even if this is, to be very diplomatic, an unelected military junta in disguise, that's what it is, because the big guy in this government in Pakistan now is Field Marshal Asim Munir, is not the prime minister, Shahbaz Sharif, definitely not. But they were very, very clever to position themselves, I wouldn't say as mediators, they were not, as the go-betweens between the Americans basically chose Pakistan to be their go-between, their principal go-betweens to talk to Iran, because they knew that Iran wouldn't talk to them directly. And indirectly, they would not trust Egypt, they would not trust Saudi Arabia, they would not trust Turkey, but Pakistan is a different story. So obviously, the Trump administration has been using Pakistan, and the Pakistanis very, very clever. They leveraged that to the max. And now their new geopolitical standing in the world went shot up like that, And when you compare to India, the Indians are basically crying at the moment. Nobody's even paying attention to India. No. But the problem is the lost in translation element in this back and forth of passing messages. We still don't know for sure if the Pakistanis sent to the Americans the real Farsi translation in English from Farsi of the 10-pointer. Or the Americans got it, and obviously they are lying. There are two possibilities. The Iranians got the 15-pointer, was very the translation from English to Farsi in the 15-pointer. They read it and they knew it already, right? But the 10-pointer, because of this enormous discussion on what's really in the 10-pointer, but it's so easy. Go to X. The 10-pointer was on X for days in English. Everybody knew what the 10-pointer was, So the White House cannot come up with no, this was not in the 10-pointer. No, that's it. It's there. So this is just I would say 2 or 3% of the maze we are all in.
Yeah,
and of course, without knowing this thing is going to happen in Islamabad tomorrow.
Yeah, and the same goes too for Pepe for what's going on in the Strait of Hormuz. How long has it been since Iran has announced and been working with vessels there around this toll? Which, Fox News here. I'll just play this. They are very surprised. They just found out that this was going on, along with the president, where they're getting insiders who are telling them that the Strait of Hormuz is under effective IRGC control.
An Israeli
intelligence. They didn't know that?
You'll see right now.
Israeli intelligence.
Incredible.
Iran is indeed demanding fees for the few vessels it's allowing to pass through the Strait of Hormuz. This official adds the strait is effectively under full IRGC control. They decide who gets to go through, but more importantly, who doesn't.
So that's been going on for quite some time, but Donald Trump came out, he said, I heard that they're charging tolls. And as I put up before, that's not part of the agreement, so all these developments, though, Pepe, it seems to point to the United States. Now Donald Trump, I don't know if you saw it, it's the same kind of game. It's the United States under Trump trying to look very big. We'll see in 24 hours what's going to happen. Maybe they're privy to the fact that the Iranians are just hanging out at the airport. We have a reset going. We're loading up ships with the best ammunition, even at a high level, to do a complete decimation. So this doesn't bode well for talks, it seems like. The level of ignorance or maybe playing ignorance and also threats.
Both, Danny. Ignorance, feigned ignorance, or outright ignorance, which is even worse. And what is obvious is that nobody among the circle of sycophants, ass-lickers, etc., is passing real-life information to Trump. It's mind-boggling. And because he doesn't read anything, obviously, he cannot fact-check anything, and obviously he doesn't fact-check anything. This is extremely, extremely worrying. This proves once again that he has no clue about the overall big picture in the local chessboard, in the Persian Gulf and in the Strait of Hormuz. People in the middle of the Sahara Desert already know by now that there is a toll booth in the Strait of Hormuz. Many of us explain how it works, that you need to get authorization from the IRGC Navy. You have to pay the toll booth. You can pay in yuan, in crypto, in petro yuan, you name it. Then you get a signal, then you cross and all that. And they are fine-tuning this. Every day there is a different set of regulations. And in this past 24 to 48 hours, very, very few tankers crossed through. There was a Russian tanker yesterday. This was immensely interesting. This Russian tanker was coming from east to west in the Strait of Hormuz, and he went all the way to Karg, which is in the northwest, to load. load itself with oil and then send it somewhere else. Probably it could be part of the Russian shadow fleet. It could be a totally legal Russian tanker, but probably is going to India on the way back. China, they don't need that from Russian tankers. They have their own, let's say, China shadow fleet, which is not a shadow fleet. China, they have at least 26, 27, or 28 tankers that keep doing the back and forth through Hormuz with no problem. And of course, the fine tuning of the toll booths is already a process. It started with what we're having now. Very, very important, because Iran constituted a new a navigational route for the tankers. Before that, they had to they usually cross the Strait of Hormuz in the middle of the strait, let's say equidistant to the Iranian shore and the Omani shore. Now, they have to navigate very close to Iranian territorial waters, between the Qasem Island, the big island, and Larak, the mini one. So this is tankers navigating not in international waters, but Iranian territorial waters. And that provides the juridical framework for them to install a toll booth. Absolutely. This was brilliant. And why they cannot go through the middle of the strait? Because it's mined.
Yep.
They are minded, so nobody can cross it.
Wait. The Navy, though, Pepe Escobar, Pete Hegseth and Donald Trump told me that it was eliminated. It was obliterated, and now they're
We're going there, we're obliterated.
That's strange. How are there sea mines? It's absolutely, it's mind blowing. Well, Pepe, I wanted to now, get into how we got to this point. Because, as you know, the Gulf countries, you have Saudi Arabia complaining about the damage to its oil facilities. You have the UAE and Bahrain pushing, saying that the Strait of Hormuz needs to be out of Iran's control. And we also have the report that you referenced earlier, where you had Donald Trump for weeks. The Trump administration was actually leaning on Pakistan to convince the Iranians to agree to a pause in fighting where it would reopen the Strait of Hormuz. Its crucial role was to be an intermediary and sell this to Iran. And then you wrote, Pepe, about the conditions that led us here in your latest article. Barbaria strategically surrenders, civilization wins. How did this surrender come? Because a lot of people are very concerned that all the United States is doing is similar to a Ukraine situation, seeking a pause, getting a pause, and rearming. Iran doesn't seem so concerned. Maybe you could talk about what you outlined here, given these conditions.
Yes, this is strategically surrender is temporary. Obviously, if you put this on a headline, the headline goes on forever, right? But if you read the article, it's there. For the moment, they were desperate because of operational matters, running out of weapons. The Americans and the best cult in West Asia. So they need an operational pause. This does not mean that in 2 weeks they will be able to rearm, to the fullest. These weapons are not available anywhere, for that matter. But they are, at the same time, of course, they will never have what it takes for a ground invasion of Iran, wherever that is. Karg Island, Strait of Hormuz, Qasem, southeast in Baluchistan. No. But they could try, of course, to establish a beachhead somewhere. Let's say, for instance, in Qasem Island. How this thing would survive, nobody knows. And every serious military analyst says, no, this is absolutely suicidal. But considering that we have the push-up clown Secretary of Foreign Affairs over there, and never underestimate his stupidity. And for the moment, he is leading the Pentagon. Until the moment where he's going to be thrown under the bus by Trump. Everybody knows that. Probably sooner rather than later. So the problem is everybody also knew that the Americans were trying to find a messenger. And they settled on Pakistan at least 2 weeks ago. At least, because this back and forth started with a few messages. It picked up speed when they had that first meeting in Islamabad, the 4 Muslims. That was early last week. Egypt, Saudi Arabia, Turkey, and Pakistan. Obviously, nothing happened. So the next day, the foreign minister of Pakistan had to pick up, step on a plane and go to Beijing to talk to Wang Yi. And the Chinese were saying, okay, you didn't do anything. Okay, let's release a statement. Very vague, very bland, but at least we have a statement. And we continue to work in the background. So they released that bland statement. Nothing happened, but they continued the back and forth in the background. The Pakistanis and the Chinese were only in the background. But when we had that absolutely ghastly, this is going to be in the history books till the end of time, of the threat to erase a civilization and the new deadline, this is when the Chinese at the last minute picked up the phone to talk to Iran. Because what we had so far was basically the Muslim countries talking to each other, but not to Iran. So the Chinese told, essentially the Chinese, this was confirmed to me by a Chinese military source, essentially. The Chinese basically, which is something that the Chinese never do. So this proves to all of you that now they took an enormous risk and now they have skin in the game. Why? Because essentially, because of all these negotiations with the Muslim countries, and they could not offer anything serious to Iran, Iran was not even paying serious attention to it. They start to pay attention when they saw the possibility of a deranged baboon of Barbaria actually bombing Iran to smithereens. And that's when the Chinese also start to pay attention directly. So they told the Iranians, look, we will be your guarantor, whatever happens from now on. What we don't know, Danny, none of us and nobody anywhere knows is how deep are these Chinese guarantees. What do they imply? We don't know. I was trying to find this among some of the best Chinese analysts these past 2 days. Nobody's talking about it. Mm-hmm. So this means there is an order coming from Beijing. No, we cannot talk about this because this is a national security matter. And they consider Iran a national security matter. Right. Because of the strategic partnership, because of the deal that they made, infrastructure and energy, because they are top member of BRICS, because they are the most important corridor in Central Eurasia. There's zillions of. So obviously the Chinese have to secure their own interests, Iranian and Chinese. So this is where we are in this. I would say this is a key turning point, because it was the number one argument to convince the Iranians to go to the table in Islamabad. And then there is this is another very complicated story, which I've been not sleeping trying to get the real version, and it's practically impossible. The best that I can tell you, Danny, and all of you, is there is no split at the top in Tehran. In the guise of the Security Council. There are 13 members in the Security Council. Only 2 are considered reformists. One of them is the president, Pezeshkian. The other 11, they are IRGC aligned, resistance, and that's it. We're going all the way with our war. So there is no split. This is bullshit. This is Zionist propaganda everywhere. But they needed, of course, there were a lot of very serious discussions. should we go to Islamabad or not? Is this a trap? In the end, the defining factor for them to go to Islamabad was China. But then when they settled, okay, we're going to send a high-level delegation to Islamabad. We're going to send Arakshi, who was already in negotiation, and Ghalibaf himself. And the Americans know Ghalibaf. And they were trying to seduce Ghalibaf these past few months as well. But then at the last minute, there was another plot twist. Lebanon. We all, when I say we, I would say the whole planet now knows, because you can actually go to X and see this posted on X by the Prime Minister of Pakistan. Lebanon is included in the ceasefire in English for everybody to read it. So obviously, immediately afterwards, the White House start lying. The Israelis start lying. The Epstein Syndicate conglomerate start lying. And of course, from the beginning, because the death cult hated the possibility of this ceasefire table in Islamabad, they went on a mad rampage on Lebanon that revolted the whole planet, literally. But the problem is, once again, they do these things because they can get away with it. Nobody's going to say anything. Can you imagine the UN condemning what they did in Lebanon? No, it will never happen. But that changed the game once again, because the Iranians said, we had agreed with everything. We agreed to something that we would never agree before. After all, we are in the driver's seat. We were convinced by our allies that we should go, give it another try, and go to Islamabad. And you changed the rules of the game only a few hours after we agreed with the possibility of a ceasefire. And that's where we are now. So I would say that these two small items are just a detail compared to the enormity of the whole thing, you know. And it's very, very easy to unblock this money in Qatar. Takes a phone call, and to unblock, not unblock, and to make Lebanon part of the whole thing, it takes another phone call. Apparently, there was a phone call, but the death cult, they don't follow. We all know they don't follow anything. So how do you rein them in?
Yeah, no.
So the Iranians have a point. The Iranians are playing it very cool. In fact, they agreed to the framework of the ceasefire, which is they didn't have to.
No, they didn't have to. And I guess I'm curious about this, what I've been thinking about, Pepe, in terms of,
yes.
There are many who are, your assessment, your informed assessment of what happened with China and Iran contradicts what some people believe happened, which is that China forced Iran to do this.
No, they never do that.
No.
This is not the way they work.
And then the other part of this is then why, a lot of people who watch the show say, well, why then would Iran do this at all? And if they don't have to, if they're in the driver's seat. And I want to ask you about the idea of a diplomatic capital, because in this driver's seat, in this position of strength, now they have an opportunity to go in front of internationally through these meetings, with a cessation of hostilities and fire, without the ability for the collective West to say, look at look at what Iran is doing, and militarily they can say, well, look at our points, look at what we want. What do you all think about this? Because I don't think they believe the United States is positioned or wants to, or would even think about meeting a lot of these demands. But now it seems like Iran has the opportunity to show who it really is to the rest of the world. I think that's an interesting point. I'm wondering, that's what I've been thinking about when I think about, well, why would you pause? And they have the ability to restart, without, as you said, the United States having the capacity to truly rearm. Maybe a here and there, but to truly rearm, it takes years for some of this stuff to be built and then to produce and then sent over. So, I'm curious of what you think about this idea of a diplomatic capital at this stage of the war, with all these other variables, including the prospect of it just restarting anyway. What's your thought about this?
They are playing it diplomatically in a very meticulous way. So we can have an idea the tone of the conversations among the 13 big guys on top. It must have been quite something. You know, these are very well-educated people. Some of them are military command. Galibaf is a former IRGC military commander as well. So these people, they have military education and philosophical education, and they became politicians, high-ranking politicians as well. So these are, well, probably they see it in parallel. Number one, they have accumulated an absolutely astounding amount of political capital all across the world in a matter of months, a little over a month. They are not going to waste it. On the contrary, they have to build on it. Can you imagine that you have discussions virtually in every continent, and even across the West, that Iran now is becoming or returning to the status of a big power? Can you imagine something like this only 40 days ago? This is already a game changer in itself. So from the point of view of, as much as we can talk about global public opinion, there is a consensus, we could say maybe in 7/8 of the planet, that Iran not only is winning the war, but it's staring down a superpower by themselves.
Right.
Can you imagine this in terms of accumulated political capital? Nobody has this nowadays, anywhere. And not even in this past few years. China is different. China is geoeconomic power. Right. But Iran is conquering this political capital in the battlefield, under attack, under fire. Wow. This is the number one test, you know, for the emergence of so they are already now not much more than a mid-ranking power. It's between mid-ranking and big power already. The three tops are still there, but Iran is ascending, almost reaching their status. Would reach their status if they have, let's say, an economic revolution in these next few years, which they have, because they have the manpower and they have the intelligence, and they can rebuild very, very fast, and also with help of their allies. Yeah. So they have to pay attention to this long-term picture, and of course their new role internationally. At the same time, when they look at the degree of devastation inflicted on them by the Epstein Syndicate, which is immensely serious, they have to think about their internal, their domestic problems. And of course, because they know that the war is not finished, this is a pause, the war will be back. And when the war will be back, there will be even more devastation, and especially in their civilian infrastructure.
Yeah.
So can you imagine how difficult it is for these guys, for these 13 guys, to put all that in perspective, and the levers, and okay, where should we calibrate this thing? How far can we go here? How much can we defer? If we play this diplomatically, are we going to increase our political capital everywhere? The fact that they are going to Islamabad is already be seen all over the world as, yes, they're going there just to show us once again that the Americans don't respect anything. So that's very, very good. The problem is the post-Islamabad, because then the war will be back. And obviously, Baboon of Barbaria already told everyone, yes, we'll be back with all the missiles that nobody has seen, all that crap, right? Right. But the calculations for the Iranian leadership are extremely complex. From a military point of view, they are not extremely worried, because the invisible cities, most of the underground cities, probably 80% of them are still underground and invisible. So everything is still there. They have their missile capability is practically intact, contrary to what Push-Up Clown is saying in DC. There was a message from the Iranians to the Pakistanis 2 or 3 days ago. They were saying, look, we still have 15,000 missiles. probably more, and 40,000 drones. And these are the last generation drones, which are incredibly lethal. And they are Shaheeds that became Gerans in Russia and now back to Iran. So they are a hybrid of Shaheed and Geran with the latest equipment, jamming devices, you name it. And, they have warheads of 90 kilos of explosives. These are absolutely lethal. So they are not worried. And of course, they can reposition a lot of stuff for the restart of the war. And of course, considering that the war is practically certain will restart, the destruction of Israel now can go to the next stage, considering there are no more, TADs, David Sling, Arrow, whatever. That's it. It's over. They don't have practically anything left. Their preoccupation, of course, is how much extra are we going to suffer in this next stage of the war? So this is probably the number one military calculation.
Yeah.
Are they expecting anything from Islamabad? No. First of all, because when you compare the 15-pointer with the 10-pointer,
I mean, it's like rain on different planets, I think. Yeah.
Planets, exactly.
Yeah.
For instance, there's a psychological element through all this. Apparently, they're not going to be on the same room once again. They're going to be in separate rooms with separate tables with go-betweens, just like the previous two negotiations. Yeah. So nothing has changed. But the fact that Vance is going to be there, and if Vance thinks that he has an absolutely mega Netflix photo opportunity, or even a dialogue on the sidelines with Galibaf, this might happen. And this would be a face-to-face dialogue that changes everything. Just like it changed in the past when the Pakistanis were the go-betweens in preparing the Nixon trip to China. When Kissinger met with Chu Enlai in person first, preparing Nixon's trip. And Kissinger was like, wow. Because Chu Enlai was on another level, And then when he came back to the US, I said, look, you have to go there. You have to talk to these guys face to face. We are in a completely different situation now. But if Vance, after all, apparently he studied in Yale. Let's see if he learned something. I'm sure if he learned a little bit, he will understand that he can come out of this with a new stature. Are the Iranians betting on it? No. But this is something that might happen. And of course, are they going to deviate from the 10-pointers? No. So this means that it's going to be a very, very, very tough, indirect dialogue again. Are the Americans ready to compromise? From everything that we have been hearing, Danny, I don't think so. They might compromise maybe they might compromise on alleviating sanctions at the UN, because this is not directly an American decision. It's going to be a UN Security Council decision. If the Americans do not vote, okay, no more UN sanctions. But American sanctions, they are forever. We all know that, right?
Yeah.
Please go ahead.
No, great points, Pepe. And the United States has been massaging the idea of sanctions relief in other instances, I feel like, to maybe prepare the way to give a little, but it really feels like an image problem for the United States, because in the back rooms, we don't know what they're saying, but they're probably saying something to the extent of expletives about some of the things we talk about and how they can't change them. But in public, this is the empire. They cannot be made to look like it's losing. But there's some breaking news, Pepe, we can react to.
Yes, go ahead.
To verify, our friend DD Geopolitics, following flight radars, said that 2 Iranian Mirage Airlines passenger planes are now en route to Pakistan, likely carrying the Iran negotiating team, although we don't know. Meanwhile, Israeli media reports say that a ceasefire announcement in Lebanon is expected, although I have not been able to track where that is. So maybe getting a little closer to this.
This means that the Pakistani media was lying. That's not good. It's not good at all. And the Iranian official and semi-official media, they were all saying the same thing. They are here at Imam Khomeini Airport and they are waiting. So apparently this was correct.
Yeah. And I guess we'll have to see what transpires from here, Pepe. But on another note, maybe you could talk about the position of the Gulf countries now. We see the media. They have anointed Iran. I mean, we've seen the New York Times everywhere. You referenced it. Iran is now a global power, a regional power. It has, from this war, which the United States has said it has won, Iran has come out stronger. Even the most anti-Iran commentary is acknowledging this fact. Like, for example, The Guardian, Iran wounded, but strategically strong. There's all these comments about this, but the Gulf countries are still taking a very hard line right now. It seems like they feel embarrassed. I see it all over X. Analysts from the UAE, you see it in the statements from the governments of the UAE, of Bahrain. They're all taking a very hard line position against Iran. I'm curious on what you think is at play here for them, given that a lot of these demands that Iran has affect them quite gravely. For example, getting rid of the U.S.'s military presence in the region, which is at the top of that list.
Well, the first thing, which is already immense, the GCC is already broken. We have 2 GCC members, Qatar and Oman, who have already proclaimed themselves to be, if not anti-Iran, not only non-anti-Iran, but neutral, and they want an accommodation. This is already gigantic. Very complicated. Kuwait and Bahrain. Bahrain is collapsing, essentially. And everything of value in terms of American installations is practically destroyed. What our friends in our Iraqi scholar friends have been saying for quite a while, it might happen sooner or later. Bahrain will be absorbed by somebody, probably Saudi Arabia, soon. Or it could be reincorporated to Iran. After all, it was part of Iran before. The big if is Saudi Arabia. UAE, they are at war practically against Iran. Not all the Emirates. For instance, Sharjah, no, nothing. I'm talking about Dubai and Abu Dhabi. So the Iranians are going to go all out on the UAE. There's no question about that. Probably not immediately, but soon. After all, they have already managed to destroy the Dubai business model. So the next step will be to destroy the Abu Dhabi oil revenues. So this leaves us with Saudi Arabia. Nobody knows exactly what they are playing, and if they have already if MBS already made up his mind to try to diversify his interests and step away from Abraham Accords, IMAC, all that convoluted crap. If he does that, that's an enormous risk because he may lose all his money, which, as we all know, is in London and in New York. The relationship between Saudi Arabia and with Russia and China is very close with both. So they are certainly, the background talk is heavy, and the Chinese and the Russians are probably telling MBS, pay attention to which way the wind is blowing. right? So they're still hedging. And what they published officially, I think was 1 or 2 days ago, is a list of all their installations that were hit and what they are losing. And apparently the figure is they are losing the export of 700,000 barrels a day. So it's not over 1 million, 1.4 and all that, but still 700,000 is a lot. And we still don't know for sure who attacked the east-west pipeline that goes to Yanbu and bypasses the Strait of Hormuz. This is not clear yet.
No.
At all.
It's not. Iran, Saudi Arabia says it's Iran. Iran says it's not.
No, RGC said no, it was not us.
Yeah. And Iran has hit Saudi Arabia, and as they hit the refiners, has hit that area. But strategically, it seems like, and it seems strategic the way that they were hitting it rather than this attack, which was, crippling.
The big joker, right? Danny, the big joker is, okay, which way Saudi Arabia will lean? Midterm. Short term, nobody can tell. Midterm, right? And of course, in terms of the Strait of Hormuz, if this new mechanism, this new mechanism will hold, will the Emirates resign themselves to pay the toll to export their own oil through Iranian territorial waters? Definitely not. And that's why they're
seething.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. They are on a time bomb. Absolutely. And this might explain from the beginning why they chose this position of basically aligning with the US and at war with Iran. There will be serious consequences for MBZ. There's no question about that. For the moment, this is not the number one priority for the IRGC, but soon it will be.
Yeah.
But the bottom line is GCC, bye-bye. Internal collapse. Split from the inside.
Right. Yeah, no, it is looking very bad for the Gulf, especially considering all of these talks are going to revolve around many issues that affect them, that none of them, I mean, what's so interesting what you said earlier about Qatar and Oman. I mean, Oman's not so much of a surprise, but it's so interesting that Qatar changed its tune very quickly after what Iran did to its
opportunists,
to its energy.
Hyper opportunists. When you go to Qatar and you interact with some of these people, and I have some friends who had interactions with members of the Royal Al Thani family, they are hyper opportunists.
Right.
So that's it. They saw which way the wind is blowing. Very simple.
Literally in their own country after Iran hit their Iran really took it to their I forget what the name of the company was, but the name of the facility, but they damaged it quite significantly.
Ras Nafar? I think it's Ras Nafar.
Yeah, the Rasfar energy.
So they lost 17% of their LNG export volumes. This is immense. And of course, the ripple effects everywhere are gigantic. Exactly. So after that, of course, I said that convinced them.
Yeah. A little bit of
course, they know what's happening with Dubai Airport. They don't want the same thing to happen to Doha, which Doha now is going to be the number one airport in the Persian Gulf. Period. It's already the most modern. It's quite pleasant as a huge airport, and it's going to be the number one. Even for Qatar Airways, swimming business. Emirates, oh my God. And Etihad, they are in deep, deep trouble, both.
Yep. Yeah, I guess, Pepe, as we get toward the hour here, maybe you can talk about, now that the balance of forces are where they are, how does this impact the Russia, China, Iran kind of ascendancy, now that you have major power brokers within the decaying collective West anointing Iran being in this position of global power now? How does this change things for the entirety? Because a lot of people were I think, pessimistic before February 28th about the multipolar world. And then they saw what happened to Iran in day one. And now we're in 6 weeks later, and the mainstream media can't stop talking about Iran being a global power. So how does this change things for the rest of the world, really? Because there's a Strait of Hormuz, and then there's, of course, the bigger development surrounding these big changes, which is Iran being part of this, now a major part, maybe one of the leading parts of this changing world.
Well, it's another history lesson, isn't it, Danny? The multipolar world would never be born in BRICS meeting rooms. It's what they have been talking over and over again in all these summits and the Sherpas and you name it. I have been following this deeply. I was a firm believer that this would happen. I did, I had a lot of effort to try to explain the importance of the role of BRICS in the multipolar world, but no, the multipolar world has to be born through a major conflagration on the battlefield, under fire, against all odds, and you turn the game around in 40 days. This is what nobody expected, but this is exactly what is already happening. And of course, behind several levels of support, Russia and China. So it's crazy because I am in the last stretch of my life as an analyst, a reporter, a nomad, and all that. I could never believe that one day I will be talking about the actual primacy of the new Primakov triangle. Russia, Iran, and China. Primakov was Russia, India, and China when he coined this expression at the end of the millennium. So now we have in front of us this new Primakov triangle as the real drivers of on the way a more solid path towards multipolarity. And it has to be under fire. The only language that the empire understands is force. And they will never admit resistance and sovereign resistance. For instance, in the case of Russia, they have to respect Russia because Russia is a nuclear power. The Americans never see Russia as a sovereign, resistant nation against the West, which is every century is trying to go there and smash Russia to bits. But in the case of Iran, it's much more complicated because it's not a nuclear power. It was declared by the Americans, we just go there in a weekend, we finish it all, and look what's happening. So in terms of a historical game changer, people will be studying this until the 25th century. And it happened so fast. And if until a few weeks ago, we could basically agree with the judgment of Emmanuel Todd 2 years ago when he published his book, The Defeat of the West in France. The main thesis of the book was that Trump is going to have to manage the strategic defeat of the US in Ukraine. Now, Trump will have to manage two strategic defeats, one in Ukraine and another one in Iran. It's too much for the brain of a 4-year-old, He doesn't even know. He cannot understand the dimension of the whole thing in front of him, Mm-hmm. So what do we have? We have these childish vociferations, these tantrums, but the big picture is what's leading even people which are part of the Western system saying, look, now it's another story. Now we have another big power emerging.
Yeah.
Can he possibly, Danny, how can he possibly sell this to domestic public opinion in the US, not to mention the rest of the planet? He can't.
No, not only can he not, Pepe, but I don't know if you saw the reports about the domestic situation in the United States because of this war. but inflation.
Well, I saw Melania saying I had nothing to do with Epstein.
Oh yeah. Well, people were joking. Trump lost to Iran so badly that now he's trying to bring back up Epstein in order to distract people from it.
There's a degree of truth, by the way.
Yeah, there's a degree of truth to that. But then there's also the how do you sell what happened with the Iran war and every consequence that's come from it, when one of the bigger consequences for just people in the United States has been the 3.3% increase in inflation over the last month, which a whopping 21.2% increase in this inflationary environment has been gasoline. So people are, I mean, China was sharing videos of, young girl just crying her eyes out because she had just had to pay something like $5+ a gallon for gas, doesn't have money for rent. I mean, this is the environment that the Trump administration's decision, people call it a war of choice. I don't know. I think the United States empire at the end of the day, they don't really see war on Iran in general as a choice. But certainly the timing and the way that it happened is definitely a choice. And that's what has led to these disastrous blowback conditions. And the Trump, I don't know how the Trump administration comes back from this as an entity, but and a future politically, but nonetheless, it seems like Trump and his team want to really supercharge these so-called negotiations to get to whatever they're going to get from them. And I just don't see that. This could go on either for a very long time, or it could just not happen at all. I don't think there's an in-between to that. I don't think there's an in-between.
Let me ask you, Danny, the host. What do you see that the Trump administration could get, considering they have zero cards in their hands?
The only thing that the Trump administration can get is, if they have, I don't know, I haven't seen it yet in two different terms of Donald Trump, but if the Trump administration can hire someone who can make a defeat look like a victory through some kind of PR spin, that's the only thing I think. Because they're going to have to, I can't imagine Iran is going to even forget capitulation, but like concessions. I don't know why Iran, or what Iran would consider conceding, other than some version of what it has laid out to the United States. Maybe it could be written differently, but nonetheless, the tolls at the Strait of Hormuz, all of this, I don't see Iran, the military presence in the region, they'll be like, oh, you can spin it however you want, but you got to do it. And Iran is not going to stop demanding it and stop talking about it in that way. So really, the United States has nothing other than maybe, hopefully for them, if for the Trump administration, they better hope they can do this, find a way to actually effectively communicate that they have won from a massive defeat. But we haven't seen it, and it's not, all they can do is thump their chests and talk about how big and powerful they are, and everyone kind of side eyes it because it doesn't make any sense. And I feel like we're gonna get a lot of that coming up, and who knows, we could very well be in a military situation again, a hot war again soon. I tend to think, though, Scott Ritter, Larry Johnson, they were on my show, and I tend to believe them when they say it's unclear whether the U.S. even has anything left to target. And if they start targeting what they claim they're going to target, well, it's kind of game over. And personally, I believe that's part of the reason why China entered and Pakistan entered, because they saw the writing on the wall that if the United States even hit one iota of Iran's infrastructure that it said it was going to wipe it away, then Iran would have done the same thing back to the Gulf countries. And then what do you have then? You have a complete disaster for not only the global economy, but the players involved. It's the United States, Pakistan, who knows? Some people were saying, and I believe this too, that they were scared that Saudi Arabia was going to invoke the Mutual Defense Pact, and they don't want any part of that. So anyway, it's a very bad terrain, and I feel like from the United States' perspective, it's just a bad situation.
What you just mentioned, Danny, it's part of Pakistan's calculations. They cannot allow anything happening that would force Saudi Arabia to call their mutual defense back. We are terrified of the possibility. Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, it's a disaster. Like, to have to dive into it was for the whole Gulf countries, these countries that are run by monarchies that just sit on top of their top global commodity, the oil and the gas and all of this, and they don't have anything else. They barely even they have no domestic support, and they rely on the chaos, and they rely on the U.S. and they rely on Israel. Very, very bad position to be in when the U.S. and Israel did this with Iran. And,
yes.
And so overall, though, yeah, from the U.S.'s perspective, it's not spin, it's not, this is trying to say that Iran has just absolutely bludgeoned the United States. The truth is that the U.S. kind of did this to itself, and Iran just had the capacity to make it happen and to resist, and they did, and now the U.S. has to face and bear the fruits of what that means, which is trying to weasel your way out of a mess that you made on your own. But I don't see it. That's why the next few days to a week plus are going to be very interesting, I think. But any final comments, Pepe? I know we're over the hour, so any final comments?
No, that's about it. Because we have to wait if something comes out of Islamabad. None of us is betting that something will come out, but maybe a rabbit out of a hat at the last minute. No?
Yeah. I'll just put up some of these super chats. You should add Iranian Lego videos to your intro outro.
Yes, Lego videos. You bet.
I would, but I heard people are getting censored for putting them up on YouTube, so that's why I haven't done it yet.
Yes, but apparently they censored the Lego Guys account somewhere. I don't know if it's in YouTube or somewhere. So everybody has
on YouTube.
But they are on X everywhere, the Lego videos.
Right. So thank you all for the generosity. Without further ado, everyone, I want you to know that you can go to the video description and find Pepe Escobar's Telegram and X, as well as a link to this article that we shared today. And be sure to hit the like button. Be sure to subscribe, all of that, video description to support this channel, all the sources. I will be back, but I am traveling soon. I'll let you know what's going on, and I will publish some interviews in the meantime.
Are you coming to Asia?
Yeah.
I am coming to Asia. Good.
Yeah,
we're going to be there for a while.
Yeah. Yep. And I'll announce what's going on when I arrive. All right, everybody, hit the like button as you go. That helps boost this conversation, and I will see you all again soon. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Danny.
朋友们，看完他们的对话，也看懂了霍尔木兹海峡没那么简单。在这种海峡的博弈中，美国已经慢慢输掉了。在全球格局中，美国已经大不如以前。现在是半死不活挣扎的表现，就连西方媒体也分析，美国这次输得很惨，特朗普再威逼也没用，伊朗的实力深不可测，霍尔木兹海峡现在完全被伊朗控制了，美国在这片区域的影响力彻底没了。美国之所以输，不是因为它的军事能力不足，更是输掉了民心的表现。美国在哪里，哪里就招人恨，究其原因就是帝国思维太严重，总想威胁别人，拿捏别人。特朗普还一味的指责要轰炸别人的国家，把别人的高管一锅端，也不看一下自己当下的现实，落到如今的结果也是美国罪有应得。然而伊朗光脚的不怕美国你专鞋的，活马当死马医，具有强硬的抵抗力，也理性的反击，把这仗看得漂漂亮亮，这才是抗战人民应有的样子。很多人问，伊朗占着优势，为什么还不愿意谈判呢？这不是妥协，而是为了积累更多的谈判筹码。伊朗想要的不是战略上的成功，更是把美国彻底的赶出中东，还伊朗，还中东一个和平安静的环境。伊朗人民和伊朗军队都是很优秀的， 从来没有动摇过。如果没能达到自己想要的条件，就不跟美国对话，牢牢守住霍尔木兹海峡。而伊朗还公开了自己的实力，有15000枚导弹，有4万架无人机，就是要守住自己的核心利益。伊朗这种软硬兼施的做法，看得出他们领导层是很有眼光的，很有眼界，就是想摆脱美国的制裁，努力跻身大国的行列，给人民更加富足安康的生活。然而，沙特、阿联酋还有这些海湾国家抱错了大腿，如今美国已经保护不了他们了，导致他们的处境特别尴尬。他们反对伊朗，也因伊朗吃了大亏，陷入两难，自己却没能力守住自己的国家。伊朗导弹飞过来，导致秩序混乱，资本转移，这就是美国主导的中东秩序正在被慢慢的打破。所以说，国家都是不一样的，不能太狂妄，太狂妄总会被打倒。美国现在就是一个真实的缩影，自己的一帮小弟，海湾国家也慢慢人心涣散，社会影响力、全球秩序将被重新组建。只有和平共处、相互尊重、相互共赢，才能给人民、给国家带来更多的发展前程。谢谢大家。